Hello again. In this video, I'd like to talk some more about a way in which you can remove obstacles and other impediments that seem to be holding you back from achieving what you really want. In the last video, I was speaking about finding the unwritten rules you've set yourself by actually writing them out or drawing them or talking about them and making those rules real, looking at them and deciding whether they still apply to you as you are now at this stage in your life. Sometimes making the change towards the outcome you want and towards getting rid of an obstacle can be as simple as simply looking for the rules that you've set, deciding they need to change, and changing them. But sometimes those rules can be a bit more stubborn, a bit harder to shift. It's a bit like one of those cleaning commercials where they say, "Have you got stubborn stains?" Well, in this case, we're thinking more about stubborn rules and stubborn beliefs that you might want to change and get rid of, but somehow feel you can't. Sometimes this manifests itself even as a feeling of having a block. I just can't quite put my finger on it, can't name it, but nonetheless it's something that feels as if it needs to be shifted. In that case, here's one possible way forward. There are many more than one, but here's one as a topic for this video. Just as in the previous video, please go through and identify the rule or rules that you've set for yourself that govern this kind of situation. For example, you might have set for yourself a rule in the past that you are afraid of presentations. Let's just take that as an example. And by writing out your beliefs and rules around that situation, you might have discovered that not only are you afraid of presentations, but you believe that you must always present perfectly, say. Now, these would be rules that would definitely hold most people back, and especially even most professional presenters who would very rarely do anything perfectly and who would be the very first always to be able to see things that they could improve in their own performance. But anyway, I digress slightly, because just taking that as an example, you or someone you know might be wanting to change a rule or a belief like this, but just feel unable to make the change like that. It might be something that you feel you need to shift with a bit more force, or to go back to the cleaning analogy, you might need a bit of a sort of powerful Ajax moment to shift it properly. If that's so, what is the Ajax moment as applied to coaching? I would have a drum roll, but what I'm about to say is probably a bit less profound than that. What you need is evidence, because your rule formed in the first place due to evidence. Maybe there was some time at which a presentation, taking the example that I've been using, didn't go so well. Maybe for you, in your situation, there was just some prior event where you formed the rule that you're now grappling with, and the evidence of that time has kind of lodged itself in your body and your mind and your soul, and you've thought, oh, it's lodged, I can't just shift it by changing a rule. Well, if you really chose to, maybe you could, but it might take more emotional energy than you have right now. Fortunately, there is another way, and it's quite a logical way, that will especially appeal to you if you particularly like logic and a left-brained approach. I mentioned this word evidence. That's what formed the belief in the first place, this rule that you've set for yourself. Fortunately, it can also be something which helps you to change that rule. Just as the evidence of a previous event caused the rule, what I'd like you to do now is to look for evidence to the contrary. So, taking the example once again of a person who has formed a belief that they're afraid of presentations, perhaps because they have felt they had to do them perfectly in the past, that person would now be choosing to look for evidence that actually they can enjoy a presentation situation, and that rather than feeling the need to do them perfectly, whatever that means, or whatever that might mean to that person, they simply need to do everything they can to enjoy it, so that they and the people listening to them can also enjoy the occasion. So that person might be looking for that kind of evidence. I don't know what kind of evidence you're going to be looking for yourself, but I'd like you just to take a few moments now to think about the kind of evidence that would help you to change this rule or this belief that you've set for yourself. And I'm going to assume that you've done that now. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about where you might find such evidence. You could find it by looking at your own life. Going back again to our example situation, that person might have had several occasions on which actually presentations went rather well if they'd allow themselves to be objective about it, or which they actually enjoyed. Or they might wish to be kind on themselves and let the bar down a little bit more, to the extent where they can actually find occasions where they've had involved and formal conversations which went rather well and they've enjoyed. Often people preclude themselves from finding the evidence which would support a change by setting their bar for progress just way too high. And I know I've been as guilty of this as many other people, because it's a favourite way in which all of us can impede progress. So if this is you, just take a breath and say, actually, just for now, I'm just going to let this bar down just at a reasonable level that allows me to find evidence of where I've performed at the very best I can in this situation or a similar situation. And I'm going to focus on that evidence. Remember also that you can find evidence to support a change that you want to make in the present. You don't have to go trawling through anything in the past. Every single occasion on which you find yourself in a situation you want to change is an opportunity to make that change. For example, going back to the person we were talking about hypothetically with their presentations, in every conversation that person has where they manage to get their point across clearly and easily and enjoy doing so, that is evidence that they can present to another person. You might be finding your evidence from all sorts of everyday situations. Take it from anywhere and everywhere you can. Just allow yourself to focus on all the things you can do, all the evidence which points towards your being able to succeed in this situation, and you will find there is a natural expansion of the rules which you set yourself, and an expansion into knowing that you can do more than you ever thought possible before. Many thanks, that's the end of this recording. But in the next one, I'll be speaking about how you can embed the changes that you've made into your everyday life.